In a world where the opportunities to share our work with a growing audience have never been so vast, it's easy to get paralyzed and to approach that audience less than intentionally. Over the last 12 years, I've found an incredible audience with my work, both images and words. And in this last of 3 episodes exploring the subject, I want to tell you how I got there and what I would do differently now.
I'm photographer David duChemin, and this is Vision is Better, a sometimes weekly podcast about the craft and art of photography. Welcome here.
12 years ago, I left a 12-year career in comedy and came back to my first creative love, photography. At the time, I knew two things. I knew two things. I wanted to do humanitarian photography and I wanted to teach. Those two desires became my North Star. Both of them, however, required an audience. In the one case, that audience would be people who would follow my humanitarian photography and eventually, I hoped, would work with me, giving me opportunities to do what I considered and still consider a calling. In the other, it was people who would listen to me, who would invest their time, attention, and eventually their money, learning from me. Knowing that made it easy. I already had a blog that gave me an outlet to discuss my re-immersion in photography, so that's where I started. I started posting my work and telling stories about my travels on assignments and talking about the lessons I was learning as a photographer new to digital, and of course, humanitarian work. That provided me all kinds of new experiences and stories. I blogged consistently and my blog grew very slowly. I commented on other people's blogs, I interacted, I guest blogged, I submitted images to places I thought I might get a feature, and my blog continued to grow and with it, my audience. And then I did podcast interviews and more readers came, but I wanted more. I wanted to do this as a career, and I felt like I was off to a late start. So on the strength of a small but growing platform, I connected through other photographers with industry leaders, companies like Lowpro and Lexar and Gitzo. And I just came right out and asked them for sponsorships, which mostly meant I got some free stuff, which was nice, but it was in exchange for writing articles for them, which they then published and linked to my blog. That was even better. It was a win-win, and their audience became my audience, and my audience continued to grow. You gain credibility one step at a time, and with that comes exposure and slow growth. All this time I was relentlessly learning and sharing what I was learning and sharing my work, and I was connecting, and this is the important part, connecting with everyone I could find that was either in the humanitarian /travel /documentary space or in the teaching space. As a sidebar, I know someone is going to say, yeah, that's all easy, but how do you get a sponsorship? Like how do I do it? And like I said in the last episode, you've got to figure that out for yourself. You find the right person by a series of emails. You introduce yourself. You ask people for connections and introductions to people that they know. And then you tell them what value you believe you can offer them. And you have conversations until you come to some kind of mutually beneficial arrangement. Every deal is different. While I don't do sponsorships anymore, they're valuable and they are just like any other collaboration with other human beings. You have something that they can use or you don't, and they have something you can use. Often it's an exchange of audience. So I introduce the camera bag maker to my audience and share their excellent camera bags, and they introduce me to their audience and share articles about making better photography or just share my photographs. And your audience grows as people connect with what you share. So at the beginning, maybe your audience is small, but if your work is good, these potential sponsors or partners might still want to be associated with it, in which case what they get out of this is simply the ability to say, look at the talented photographers using our gear, implying, of course, there must be a connection between the two, a reason that you would choose their gear, for example, over other people's. In my case, I was also giving them a way to connect to the good that I was doing through my humanitarian projects. That's valuable. Every opportunity in my life has come at some point from a conversation that I had. So I had a lot of conversations. They often started with comments on blogs, but then they grew. And once in a while, I found the courage to reach out a little more, maybe to someone a little bit higher profile. One of those people was Scott Kelby. We had interacted a couple of times on the back end of our blogs, and I liked him and sensed that He had a good sense of humor about things, and he was pretty open with, the little people like I was, and still am. So I emailed him and asked him if he would let me buy him lunch and pick his brain about a book idea I had. He said yes. A friend brought me to Florida because things were kind of tight at the time. Couldn't even afford to buy my own plane ticket. And Scott graciously listened to my ideas and eventually introduced me to his editor. 10 books later, some of them bestsellers, and here I am, wherever that is. And each of those books has helped me grow my audience slowly, one step at a time. Each one opening new doors to me, to what I do, and giving me chances to share not only my writing, but also my photography. In that 10 years, things have changed dramatically. Blog readerships across the board have totally tanked, while other media like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and YouTube have grown dramatically. Each new media brings with it a chance to interact with your existing audience and to grow or to find a new one. Some won't fit you or your goals, like Snapchat is not for me, but others will. I continue to learn and to experiment with new media like YouTube and to see if there's a way to use it to introduce new people to what I do. Some of them work, some of them fail. That's life. So speaking of failure, here are a couple of the mistakes I've made, and they're the same ones I see other people making, and they're missed opportunities. So on the strength of my failures and the things I've learned, let me give you sort of a top three. First, don't mistake consistent broadcasting as interaction. Broadcasting and interaction are very different things. Both are good, but I think if I had to pick, interaction's better. Engagement is better. Engagement's a two-way street. I'm still learning this because I'm not naturally a super social person, but if I had to choose between doing, say, 3 posts a week with no real effort, no time spent on interaction, and 1 post a week, but still having time to reply to emails or send a happy birthday wish to a follower on Facebook or replying to comments and questions on Instagram or YouTube, hands down, every time I would choose the latter. Engagement is key to keeping people's attention. It's about relationship and about connection. And I don't mean pretending to care. I mean genuine caring, genuine connection. If you can't do that, don't try, because you can't fake this kind of thing. There are so few people out there that truly give a shit. So the more you care and show you care, the more connections and the deeper the engagement. The second mistake I see is a lack of focus. Even knowing what I really wanted to accomplish, I was a little bit all over the map at times, and it's only in the last couple of years that I've really begun to understand the value of not only sharing, but sharing with real focus. Focus on the kind of work I am sharing and the kind of messaging I'm putting out there. This goes back to that whole idea of what do you want to get known for that I talked about in the first video. Related to this, I also allowed myself to get comfortable and to take my audience for granted. This is not a good thing. There was a point a couple of years ago where I just got so busy with other things, and I think I just expected my audience to be there when I got back. On a day-to-day scale, there's probably nothing wrong with that. We have a rhythm to our life, and we're going to drop off once in a while and give ourselves a break. And the world's not out there, wringing its hands, waiting for me to post again. But I wish I had been less flippant about it. And when I stopped mailing it in, I found my engagements were more meaningful and my work got way better. I found that because suddenly I cared much more about my audience, that my desire to really serve them, really create strong stuff for them, went through the roof. And I think out of that has come, for example, my best books, A Beautiful Anarchy and Soul of the Camera. With better work, with more authentic work, as well as getting off your ass and promoting that work, comes more exposure and a growing audience. People just resonate with better, stronger work that you give a shit about. The third thing I paid attention to later than I wish I had was a mailing list. Now, this is not just for people that want to do this professionally or sell things, though it probably seems more immediately applicable. The fact is, we're all selling something. We're all asking people for their attention. When you post to social media, you rely on that platform, whatever it is, and on, for example, Facebook, serving up your content to your audience. It's passive, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it leaves the control in their hands, not in ours. And God help us if Facebook or Instagram or YouTube went under or got hacked or changed their terms of service. That could leave you disconnected from your audience. email is still one of the best ways to reach out, to touch, to stay in touch with your audience. And while not everyone is going to open and read every email you send, the engagement on this stuff can be much higher and in your control. I didn't get intentional enough about this fast enough. Find a way to connect with your audience. Give them some reason. Remember, it's totally all about value. Give them some reason to trust you with their email address. If they don't trust you with their email address, it's a good chance you don't have something valuable enough for them to trade with. It's got to be about value. You've got to give them something. And I let this slide for a couple of years, and my emails got less personal. They got very corporate and full of slick marketing stuff and buy my ebook. And that's fine because I believe in the resources I create. And this is part of how I make my living. There's nothing wrong with that. But lately I've gone back to sending much more personal emails, articles that exist purely to serve, to teach, and to make people's lives richer. And yeah, once in a while I tell them about one of my books or I tell them about a new resource. But that renewed engagement that I'm getting is now way more human. It's way more concerned about the people on the other end of things, and the engagement is going way up. I'm getting thank you emails in reply to my bi-weekly emails to my audience. People that would never before have said, hey, thanks for that sales email. Now it's not a sales email, it's just reaching out. And people are actually sending me thank you. Thank you so much for the content, the value that you're giving me. People are copy pasting and sharing them on Facebook. And that kind of thing leads to the most fundamental marketing tactic, if it can be called that, of all, word of mouth. We all talk about word of mouth. It's the best kind of marketing, but we don't really believe it. If you get really intentional about the kind of work you want to make and allow that work to find its best audience, and then you serve that audience relentlessly, people will tell people. Because social media can be very unsocial, and the people that actually give a damn are pretty rare. And when you're rare, you stand out and you give more than you take, and people take notice. They open your emails, they engage and share and like and comment and give you hearts, and they subscribe. Whatever it is that you're asking them, they engage because they want that thing, because it's full of value. It always comes back to value. Forget the tactics, connect. Serve, be intentional about the value you bring to this world. And even if you're not selling something, you still have photographs to share. Send an email with news about the latest piece that you've put up on your portfolio or a story behind the image. But whatever it is you do, share with your audience, connect, and give them value. All right, that's it for me. This week I'm heading north toward the Alaskan border to spend a week with spirit bears and whales and friends. Friends, all of whom, by the way, I met in some way through my blog or social media, some kind of connection that happened out there by sharing, and now have these incredible friendships. Anyway, I'll be back soon. In the meantime, if you're not already getting my emails, go to mycontactsheet.com, and the first email I'll send you will have links to 4 of my best-selling ebooks, yours totally free and with my gratitude. Thank you so much for being part of what I do. Now get out there and go make something beautiful. And remember, gear is good, but vision's better. Take care.